Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. It is the longest running nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I hope all of you are having a wonderful day. As we get things started here, we have a couple of different things to talk about, including the fact that, our scheduled guest was unable to make it today. So our Linux program will be moving to another day sometime here soon. Probably won't be but a couple days, so keep an eye out for that. Let's see. Another thing would be welcome into the show. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and let's see. So today, for the entire show, we will be having computer and technology news, which actually works out pretty darn well because there's a lot of news breaking, and a lot of it is, pretty important. We have some hardware updates about the whole Intel Spectre Meltdown kind of situation. We have lots of news coming out of places like Samsung, who are making the latest in graphic DDR, or RAM. That they're making the latest in RAM, so what that means, and just a lot of different stuff. So stay tuned for that. But before we get started, a couple of things to mention, including ComputerAmerica.com. That's where you'll find everything and anything having to do with today's show. Be it, the show notes, so everything that we talk about here on the show, be it video, articles, demonstrations, anything can be found right there in the show notes on the homepage. Also, be sure to check out the social media contest, which is brought to you by Logitech, and we'll be choosing a new winner here this Friday, so be ready to check that out. And last thing is, of course, the video portion, where you can see me, but you can also see the articles that we're doing, and you can follow along if you so choose. Not crucial, not mandatory. We're still a radio show, but just another way to experience what it is that we do here. So, with all of that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started with computer and technology news. So, here we go. All right, so our first story that we're going to do is going to be this one, and this is from The Verge, where they're talking to Tim Cook, who is, of course, the CEO of Apple. And, if you have not been paying attention, Apple recently got caught up in a bit of a kerfluffle where they were throttling people's CPUs in respect to their battery, I don't want to say longevity, but their battery health. So if you had a less healthy battery, let's say even if you had an iPhone 7, 6, 6S, what have you, especially in the older models, your battery won't be able to hold the charge as well and won't be able to, expend the amount of energy that it used to. So Apple did some things behind the scenes that would keep your phone performing less like a new phone, but it wouldn't shut off, which is what Apple claimed that they were trying to prevent, where new iOS updates were causing crashes in older phones, and again, primarily due to the batteries. So this whole thing's going on, and legal battles aside, lawsuits aside, all that good stuff, this coming out today, where Apple CEO Tim Cook has shared that the next update to iOS 11 will allow users to disable battery performance throttling on their phones. And the move comes after Apple last month admitted it intentionally slows down phones, as we mentioned. And here, with an interview with ABC News, Cook says that the update will arrive next month in a developer release before a wider public rollout. And we're, quote, we're going to give people the visibility of health of their batteries, so it's very, very transparent, and that hasn't been done before. And he's right. Apple is very famous for not exactly letting end users get into the nitty gritty. They hide all of it behind developer kits, they hide it behind a lot of system manager software. And really, the end user just gets kind of what Apple feels is a need to know basis information. But here we have, for one of the first times, Apple admitting that, hey, you don't, or hey, you are allowed to look at this, which is fine. It's something that I think a lot of people won't be intimidated by, and it's going to be very helpful. Again, if they had done this from the beginning, this would have been a non-issue. So, Cook also says that the update will more clearly inform users when their iPhone is automatically reducing its performance in an effort to prevent unexpected shutdowns. And if you don't want it to, you can turn it off. That's what Cook says. And, essentially allowing people to decide if they want to do this or not. So, and that was in an apology letter. So, Apple currently faces multiple class action lawsuits after admitting to intentionally slowing down iPhones. So, and they said that the next iOS update will be sometime in February, so take a look out for that. But again, this is something that Apple has not really done before, and that's giving user control over a lot of the, behind the scenes hardware. And again, if they had done this from the beginning, it would have been a non-issue. But Apple does what Apple thinks is best for its users, and sometimes that's going to bite you in the butt. So there you have it. All right, so there's that article, and I think we're going to go ahead and switch on over to, we have some other Apple ones here. You know what? Let's do this. So there's another Apple one here I wanted to get to, and it's been updated since it happened this morning. It was a very quick turnaround, and it wasn't as bad as it seemed. It was more of, an app that Apple claimed had no real legitimate use. And since this publishing of this article, and since the backlash it was getting, it has since pulled it. I think it was more automated than anything else. And, so you can't really blame them for that kind of reaction. But hey, at least they did do the right thing after the fact. So, all right. So this next story, it comes from Motherboard, and let's see, Jason Kobler. And again, so Apple is blocking an app that detects net neutrality violations from the App Store. And again, the update being that Apple has since backed off. So after, here we go. And here's the update. Let's start with this first, and then we'll do bits and pieces of the article, because the article is actually, quite lengthy. But here we go. So the update is, after this article was published, Apple told Dave Choffness that his iPhone app designed to detect net neutrality violations will be allowed in the iTunes App Store, where, according to Choffness, Apple contacted him and explained that the company has to deal with many apps that don't do the things that they claim. And Apple asked Choffness to provide a technical description of how his app is able to detect if wireless telecom providers throttle certain types of data, and 18 hours after he did, the app was approved, saying that the conversation was very pleasant, but did not provide any insight into the review process that led the app to be rejected in the first place. So again, here is the original article. And again, the app was pretty darn cool. The app was designed that you load it onto an iOS device, and it runs in the background. And if it feels that one of the apps to one of the big service providers is being throttled, as in, YouTube or Netflix or, any of these other services that people use on a pretty big daily basis, they have, according here, he has 7 different apps: YouTube, Amazon, NBC Sports, Netflix, Skype, Spotify, and Vimeo. So any of those, it would detect if the service provider was throttling data to and from this service. So according to the app, here we go. I believe it's the authors. Verizon LTE service streamed YouTube to his iPhone at 6 megabits per second. where Amazon Prime Video at 8 megabits per second and Netflix at 4 megabits per second. So YouTube, Amazon Prime, Netflix, 6, 8, and 4. And saying that it downloaded other data streams at speeds of up to 25 megabits per second. And if you're watching the video portion, you can see a screen cap of it here where, it doesn't say explicitly this is throttled. It says that there's some kind of differentiation. And what that means is that you can expect a non-app throughput. So you can expect if it's not going through YouTube or Netflix or Amazon Prime distribution servers, then the data speeds are 20, 26, 15 megabits per second along similar routes. But when it is through those particular services, it shows that they are being discriminated against at the packet level. So even though you have a maximum possible download speed of 20 for YouTube, you're only getting 6, or 15 for Netflix, you're only getting 4. This app is designed to show you different services that are throttled just because of the content that you're trying to stream, not because it's too much. Again, there are other services that you can get 20 megabits per second from, or you can get 26. But just the fact that there are these services, you are getting throttled because of it. And that was a core tenet of net neutrality, and that was something that internet companies had promised they wouldn't do, where they had promised that they would not discriminate on traffic based on the type of traffic going through it. And here we have a clear example of an app that would do just that. So, saying, and just a little more clarification on what differentiation means, it's, and this according to the author, saying that in this case, throttling by Verizon, and that this would, in theory, be the sort of thing people would want to know. With this knowledge, they could choose to switch to another carrier or could lodge a complaint against obviously Verizon in this case, with the Federal Trade Commission. And here we go, saying that the FCC has recently made the argument that most attempts by ISPs to block or throttle content will likely be met with fierce consumer backlash. In the event that any stakeholder ISP were inclined to deviate from this consensus against blocking and throttling, we fully expect the consumer expectation, market incentives, and the deterrent threat of enforcement action will constrain such practices. We're seeing that that's not the case. To break that down, he's saying that internet companies won't throttle because people will be mad, and if they're mad, then they will go to another carrier, or they will, or there will be some kind of backlash from the FCC. Even though there probably won't be, just the threat of such will make sure that that doesn't happen. And then also, if they throttle, when he says market incentives, I guess he's saying that their competitors would at some point say that, hey, we don't throttle Netflix. These guys do. Choose us instead. I guess those would be the market incentives, that you look bad to a consumer. All of that doesn't hold a candle to actual enforcement by regulation. Instead, what we're getting is a very clear throttling of a lot of different service providers. So you can't even say hey, they're only doing it for this one app. They're doing it so much that you're probably not even going to notice. You're just going to think something is happening on their side. So let's see. So let's go. An Apple App Store reviewer told Chofness that your app has no direct benefits to the user, and they said it was objectionable content. So that was talking about why it was taken down. Again, we cleared that up. It was not taken down. 18 hours later, it's back up on the market, and you can go download this now. By the way, the app is called. Let's see. The app is called. Wow, I should totally know this. Let's see. The FCC has suggested that consumer outrage will prevent companies from violating net neutrality. He created an app that can detect net neutrality violations. It's available in the App Store, and it's called Test Flight. There we go. And well, let's see. It was beta testing the platform called TestFlight. I tested the app called Wehe. So WEHE is the name of the app. If you want to download it right now, I believe it's free and you can check it out. It runs in the background and is able to determine if your packets are being throttled based by your carrier. So, we don't need to break down net neutrality again and get why this is not really a deterrent for them to do this. In fact, this is in their own best interest and it saves these companies tons of money. We don't need to rehash that, but just know that this app is available in the App Store. It was not previously, and if you wanted to check it out, again, available through iOS, you would be able to. So, yeah, go ahead and check that out. All right. So let's see. So again, we just switched from that one to Apple because it was Apple related, but Apple recanted, so we are a-okay. All right. How about we do this one? So cryptocurrency. It's a hot topic because it's so volatile. It's so crazy when you look at the price of Bitcoin in particular, but lots of other cryptocurrencies because, a lot of their values are tied to the value of Bitcoin. You get to the point where Bitcoin is a pretty good indicator for a lot of other coins on the market. Of course, it's not the only coin. There are lots of others. They go up, they go down. It's it's a wild ride. And it's been a pretty bad wild ride if you've been paying attention over the last about week or month or so, where the price of Bitcoin has, I don't want to say plummeted, because plummeted would be back to what it was before this crazy expansion. But I think I want to say the word plummeted because a lot of end users, they got into cryptocurrency after it hit its all-time high. And since then, it has not seen prices anywhere close to what a lot of people were thinking they were going to, buy into. I mean, heck, Bitcoin alone, if you look at it, just in the past week, it's lost about $2,000, which is about 15% of its overall value. So here we have an article, this one coming to us from Ars Technica. And yeah, cryptocurrency bloodbath continues as Bitcoin falls below $10,000. And yeah, saying that Bitcoin fell below the psychologically significant level of $10,000 on Wednesday. And saying that marking a second day of double-digit declines for the virtual currency, where one Bitcoin is now worth about $9,700, which is less than half of its peak. And by the way, it's currently worth about $11,700 as of the time of this show. Anyways, they said that the fall is part of a broader cryptocurrency sell-off, where for the second day in a row, every major cryptocurrency has suffered double-digit declines over the past 24 hours. And, the article goes into a number of the more popular coins and how almost all of them have also lost 50 to 60% of their value. Volatile doesn't hold a candle to what this stuff really is. So, saying that there doesn't seem to be any specific factor driving a wide-ranging sell-off, and that there have been some hints that South Korea might regulate cryptocurrency more strictly, but it's hard to believe that those rumors are enough to drive a big global sell-off. Although there was one issue of, I believe it was a pretty big scandal with one of the exchanges, where there was some deviousness going on there. So, I mean, some fraud going on. There was some speculation that, yes, South Korea would ban cryptocurrencies. All in all, it led to a shaky base for cryptocurrency. And I'm sure there's some kind of self-fulfilling prophecy that when people who maybe invested, let's say they invested $1,000 into cryptocurrency, and then a week later they look at their earnings and they're down 40%, 50%, there's probably not a lot of incentive. If you were just kind of hearing about it and you bought into it and you were like, okay, let's give this a try, and then so quickly you lose so much, there's probably a bit of buyer's remorse. And those people may be getting out of the market. Those who just heard about cryptocurrency and then they flip around and get out of cryptocurrency because they're so skittish. So, anyways, many of those new investors know little about the underlying technology and have little experience investing in highly volatile investments like Bitcoin. And as a result, the price was going up. They were happy to continue holding or even buying more. But when the price starts to drop, some of them inevitably lose their nerve and panic sell, which accelerate the price of decline. So the big question is, what will happen after the shakeup is over? Where we might find out that the run-up of the last few months was a purely speculative boom, in which case Bitcoin might never recover its early highs. And on the other hand, people might see Bitcoin's low price, and at least compared to the last few days, as a buying opportunity, causing Bitcoin's price to start rising once again. And I think that's the only thing keeping Bitcoin, and again, anything that I say here on the show, and really anything anyone says, is pure speculation. It's not to be taken as gospel. You can take your best guess, and your best guess is probably as good as my best guess. But I will say that the only thing keeping Bitcoin to where it currently is the fact that so many people, they're still, kind of on the fence about this. They're still, well, it was $19,000 at one point and it still could go up. But there's so many people that have already gotten out because they just don't feel it's right for them. And, it probably is not right for them. So, yeah, we're going to keep an eye on Bitcoin. We're going to see what happens. That is my only solace, is that I've known about Bitcoin. I've known about cryptocurrency since, 3-4 years ago when it was trading, for just a couple of dollars, when it was like $100 a coin or $15 a coin. I've known about it since then, and trust me, I would be doing a completely different kind of show if I invested then. But part of me is happy that I didn't, because now I get to sit back, look at this, and really study it with no attachment to it. I don't have to root for it to go through the roof. I don't have to hope that these cryptocurrencies do well. I can sit back and go, oh, look, here's what it did. Here's why it did it. And it's okay that it went down because, hey, I'm not a part of it. So anyways, cryptocurrencies, that's what it is. And yeah, you can check that out. All right, so with that being said, why don't we go ahead and pick our next article? We have time for one more before the break. And all right, how about we do... All right, I think we have time for this one. So Apple has their own woes with their CPU throttling, all their problems going on over there. But there's another big company that is also dealing with a number of issues. And it's Intel, where Intel admits that Spectre patch problems also affect newer core chips. So newer meaning current generation chips. And this coming to us from Engadget, Ms. Mariella Moon, and saying that Intel has revealed that even its newer CPUs are affected by the frequent reboot problems brought about by the Spectre Meltdown patches. And and if this article doesn't do a good job of explaining what these patches are trying to fix, we'll talk about that. But second to the article, the chipmaker previously said that the reboot issue affects systems running Broadwell and Haswell. Now that it has managed to reproduce the problem internally in an effort to fix it, the company found that a similar behavior can occur in platforms powered by Skylake and Kaby Lake, so some of the more recent chips. And they said that Ivy and Sandy Bridge based systems, both older cores, are also susceptible to the bug. And thankfully, Intel VP has said that they're close to identifying the problem's roots and issue, saying that in parallel, we will be providing beta microcode to vendors for validation by next week. So, yep, essentially Intel saying we're working hard on it. And that's, let's see. So Shinoy also discussed how the Spectre and Meltdown fixes will affect servers, staying true to Intel's promise to be more transparent. He revealed that the initial data from the company got from benchmarking server platforms using two-socket Intel Xeon Scalable systems. It found that the fixes don't affect server energy efficiency, and it didn't detect a slowdown when running Java business applications. However, it did detect a minimal impact of around 2 to 4% in some cases, and saw significant slowdowns when it ran tests simulating different types of input-output loads. So, the true effect of this bug is probably not going to be at the user level. It's going to be at the server level. It's going to be for these large companies that have thousands and thousands of CPUs. They're going to notice the most significant impacts. Everyone else, home users, you should be pretty okay. So, Intel said that when it stressed the CPUs to use 100% of its power to read data, it didn't see a decrease in speed. But when it tasked the system to use 100% of its power to write data, its speeds decreased by 18%. An 18% decrease in speed for writing data. Reading, just fine. Writing, 18%, which makes sense. Due to the nature of the bug, you can see why write speeds would be even slower. And saying that in addition, when the company tested the systems using tools for writing high-performance, scalable user mode storage applications, it said there was a 25% decrease when only using a single core. So, Intel says it's working with partners and customers to address the areas where it saw a significant slowdown, and that one option it's looking at is retpoline. Okay, a technique a Google engineer conjured up to protect the Tech Titan system from the second variant of Spectre without affecting performance. So, yeah, the article didn't do anything about what the initial cause was. For anyone out there who recalls, Spectre/Meltdown had to do with the fact that to get a little bit more juice, and I say a little bit more, but we're seeing here 18 to 25% in some cases. It would preload applications that it thought it was going to have to do in the near future. So it was trying to read your mind, and it would, get all of its ducks in a row, and then it would much quicker to execute those processes. And the problem was that those processes that it had queued up, which sometimes contain data of completely, user-sensitive, data-driven sensitive software, those could be looked at, read, and leaked with the right software, picked up, leaked, before it touched any other part of the operating system. So if you wanted to protect, let's say, banking statements, and and the CPUs were detecting that you were using banking software, then a piece of malware could pick up your banking information while it was being processed, even before any kind of anti-malware thing was even, touched upon. There really wasn't anything that any kind of malware products could do to stop it, because it happened before those were even called upon. So it was a big problem. Intel's working on it, and it sounds like they have a couple of different solutions going forward as to how to best deal with it. So there's Intel, there's your update, and definitely want to stay up to date on that, because, hey, any software problem that affects every single CPU sold by Intel in the past 10 years. That's a big story. So everyone, stay tuned. More Computer America right after this.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 31 minutes past the hour, and if you're just joining us, welcome into the program. And again, we apologize that our Linux correspondent was unable to join us today, but we will be sure to get him on ASAP. It will be much, much sooner than next month. It will be in the next couple of days. Don't worry. So in the meantime, we are doing computer and technology news. And again, we're just wrapping up this article having to do with Intel and Spectre and what they're doing to hopefully patch that. And hey, again, what we're getting is they're working on it, and they are being pretty darn transparent about the speeds that people are experiencing with the updates that they're doing. And you can be sure that, as time goes on, they're hopefully going to get a better and better grip on this. And to be clear, something that we learned was that future CPUs from Intel won't have the same problem. They just won't. Future updates, future CPUs from Intel are going to be designed differently from the ground up, but the processors that are already on the ground, the processors that were already shipped to customers, those can't be changed. So, yep, looking forward, it's probably going to be a thing, but current generation, keep holding your breath that that they get a better handle on this. So, how about, all right, this one's pretty cool. If you're looking for the next reason to buy a graphics card, and, if you don't buy into all the marketing hype, I try my best not to, when they introduce the latest and greatest video card, I always try to see what technology is behind it and that you are truly, truly improving. And if the technology behind it isn't really that much of an improvement, then no amount of marketing will ever get me to buy a new graphics card. But we're looking at something that could be worth spending a little bit more money on. And Samsung has reported that they are starting to produce GDDR6 RAM for the next gen graphics cards. And here we go. This coming from Engadget, Steve Dent, saying that you can start getting pumped about the next generation of graphics cards, as Samsung has announced that it's building the first ever 16 gigabit GDDR6 chips using its 10 nanometer class technology, where the news isn't a complete surprise, as Samsung previously said that GDDR6 was coming when it unveiled 8 gig DDR4 RAM chips last month and won a CES 2018 Innovation Award in November. So here's a quote saying that beginning with this early production of the industry's first 16 gigabit GDDR6, we will offer a comprehensive graphics DRAM lineup, or DRAM lineup, with the highest performance and densities in a very timely manner. And the company also did a minor tease saying that the chips will play a critical role in early launches of next generation graphics cards and systems, which is great. In layman speak, this is going to be a huge boon for, well, cryptocurrency miners, one part of it, and the other part of it are gamers. It just means that your graphics card is going to be much, much more powerful when it comes to the uh, RAM side of the whole equation, which is great. So let's see. And of course, he may debate whether Samsung is behind the 7 nanometer tech or if its 10 nanometer tech is inferior to what Intel still has in store for the future. However, at least Samsung's foundries are stamping out the chips, and which is all that really matters to consumers. And saying that the GDDR6 chips will make all kinds of things better for gamers. Where first off, they offer double the speeds of previous 8 gigabit GDDR5 RAM. So again, we're going from 8 gigabit to 16 gigabit, and we're going from GDDR5 to GDDR6. So that's the main designation you have to watch out for. And they said that they also consume about 35% less energy and offer a 30% manufacturing productivity gain, so that its assembly lines can build more chips in the same amount of time, which is awesome. That means that these chips are going to be flooding the market, and I know flooding the market sounds like a bad thing a lot of times, but when it comes to the latest technology and the best stuff, hey, we want that stuff to flood in like crazy. So what that means for you is that you get a better gaming performance, less power drain, and cheaper graphics cards. And that is unless all the chips are gobbled up by Bitcoin miners. And, one part we did see was that the GeForce GTX 1070 went from a suggested retail price of $380 to a suggested retail price of $890. Just to make that clear. It's because, gamers used to be their own kind of market and they used to do their own thing. But now that Bitcoin mining and cryptocurrency mining is, something that's very, very popular in the moment, that these graphics cards, which are the best at mining Bitcoin, they're in high demand because you have two different forces now acting upon it. So, anyways, either way, we did have, either way, the article does wrap up, say this is good news for Samsung and good news for gamers. I will definitely say that. So there you have it. Next GDDR6 is being produced, which is great. All right. So, how about some AI? Yeah, we have two stories here dealing with AI, and they get a little weird, which is okay. But it shows you the potential of massive data sets and artificial intelligence, and when they combine, they can do things such as, well, profile. And this one coming to us from TechDirt, saying that Glenn Moody, saying that using AI to identify car models in 50 million Google Street views reveal a wide range of demographic information. And this was a bit creepy, but also, hey, again, just because it's creepy doesn't mean that it, well, I guess in some cases does mean stop, but it's not going to. So here's what we know. Google Street View is a great resource for taking a look at distant locations before traveling, or for visualizing a nearby address before you drive there. But Street View images are much more than vivid versions of otherwise flat maps, where they are slices of modern life conveniently sorted by geolocation. And that means they can provide all kinds of insights into how society operates and what the differences are geographically. Where the tricky part is extracting that information. And here we have an article in the New York Times reports on how researchers at Stanford University have applied artificial intelligence techniques to 50 million Google Street View images taken in 200 US cities. And since analyzing images of people directly is hard and fraught with privacy concerns, the researchers concentrated on a proxy, which are cars. And as an academic paper published by the Stanford team notes, quote, 95% of American households own automobiles, and as shown by prior work, cars are a reflection of their owner's characteristics, providing significant personal information. You wouldn't think it just by the car, but they're claiming they can do some very weird things. Where first, the AI system had to be trained to find cars, and that's something that's easy for humans to do, but pretty hard for computers. And while the next stage of the work, which was identifying the car models, is much easier using AI. Where, as another paper reported on the research, they explained that, well, the fine-grained objects, because they're essentially saying that because cars have a set dimension, be it their chassis are a certain way, they look a different way, they're molded a different way, they have these convenient logos plastered all over the cars. For artificial intelligence, it's able to pick up a lot of those minute measurements and details, and much, much, much quicker, they're able to identify and classify automobiles. So they said that while it classified the automobiles in 50 million images in 2 weeks, a human expert, assuming 10 seconds per image, would take more than 15 years to perform the same task. So for this AI, it took it about 2 weeks to identify 50 million cars. If a person were to do it, taking about 10 seconds, because, 10 seconds is probably pretty fast. Considering that they have to know not only the maker of the car model, but then also what year it is. Yeah, AI is definitely better at that. So, hey, they got that down. So, they said that that means that they were able to analyze a much larger data collection than ever before, and they were able to extract new kinds of information. Now, here's the cool part, or the weird part, whichever way you want to land on this, saying that the system was able to accurately predict income, race, education, and voting patterns at the zip code and precinct level in cities across the country. Let that sink in. Again, income, race, education, and voting pattern. So Democrat, Republican, or what have you. Income level, how much a person makes, what ethnicity they happen to be, and education, how educated they are. And that car attributes found that the greenest city in America to be Burlington, Vermont, while Casper, Wyoming has the largest per capita carbon footprint. I would assume Wyoming because it's so rural out there and you need a big truck to kind of do your thing. But either way, let's see some other insights. Chicago is the city with the highest level of income segregation, while large clusters of expensive and cheap cars in different neighborhoods. Jacksonville, Florida is the least segregated by income. So congratulations, Jacksonville, and Chicago has some work to do. Where New York is the city with the most expensive cars, El Paso has the highest percentage of Hummers. El Paso, highest percentage of Hummers. Way to go, El Paso. And San Francisco has the highest percentage of foreign cars. And the research points out that the rise of self-driving cars with onboard cameras will produce even more street images that could be fed into AI systems for analysis, and that they also note that walking around a neighborhood with a camera, for example, and a smartphone, would allow image data to be gathered very simply and cheaply. And as AI systems become more powerful, it will be possible to extract even more demographic information from apparently innocuous street views, where although that may be good news for academic researchers, determining offline activities clearly creates a new privacy problem at a time when people are already worried about their privacy being violated. So what that all means, and again, here's the weird part. Street View. I think most people are completely fine with Street View. That is something that was very innovative by Google, and when Apple copied it, no one batted an eye, and now it's just taken for granted that you can look at anything anywhere. But when those are updated more and more often, and as they mentioned, when cars are essentially cameras on wheels at some point, the seemingly large amount of data, 50 million cars in 2 weeks, there could be a time when the data fed into these systems by self-driving cars and other cars on the road, you're now looking at, maybe even on a rotating weekly basis, every car driven in America. And based off that information, you can then draw other conjectures, again, such as education, voting, voting preferences. You could look at income, race. You can take all of these things as pretty good data off of, as they said, very innocuous sources. So what that means is, we have that census every 10 years. It updates. You let people know if you're still alive. You let them know, how much you earn, where you live, things like that. Very basic questions that come to a census. This is a census that can be done probably, and again, not saying right now, but eventually, in the next couple of years, this is a census that could be almost a live view of, income, race, education, and it could be updated constantly, which of course would give a lot of people a lot of information about you, your town, where you live, and more, that could shape either politics or advertising or any number of instances that would rely on advertising to certain persons of a certain education level, of a certain income level, of a certain, what have you. Again, all of this just from Street View. This is not from any kind of super invasive technology. This is something that I think a lot of people are perfectly okay with at this point. So, yeah, it's something you're definitely going to be running into. So there you have it, and I can see why this was filed under privacy, even though it was AI and, Street View. All right. Folks, there's a scourge hitting YouTube, and it's called the Tide Pod Challenge. And it's this weird thing where people think that the Tide Pod looks very edible. And I think it also piggybacks on a report a couple of months ago that said that more adults had been reported poisoned by Tide Pods than children or babies. That's right, perfectly grown, fully functioning adults were the leading cause of poison from ingesting Tide Pods. And, there was something called the Tide Pod Challenge, where you would challenge people to eat these things, and it's kind of like the cinnamon challenge. It can only end poorly for you. There's not really a best case solution or a best case scenario when you take this challenge. So this led YouTube to crack down. And here we go, saying that with YouTube commenting that it would remove any Tide Pod Challenge videos, noting in a statement to Fast Company that YouTube's community guidelines prohibit content that is intended to encourage dangerous acts that have inherent risk of physical harm, and that we work to quickly remove flag videos that violate our policy. And according to Time, there have already been 39 reported cases of teenagers misusing the colorful laundry pod so far in 2018, which was, I think that number, 39, was about the number reported for the entirety of 2016 and 2017. So 39 cases in 2016 and 53 cases in 2017, and we're 2 weeks in, and we're already at 39 cases in 2018. This is one of the silliest things I've ever heard. So, in an earlier statement, the Time Procter and Gamble, which owns Tide, noted that the company has been working with leading social media networks to remove harmful content that is not consistent with their policies, and that the laundry packs are made to clean clothes, and they should not be played with, whatever the circumstances, even if it's meant as a joke. So, yeah, and as the author ends this article, don't eat laundry pods. And the fact that YouTube considered it a violation of community policy, and it could take down your video, issue strikes against your channel, and possibly remove your entire account, shouldn't factor into this decision. But here we are talking about not eating laundry detergent. So, if you were planning on making the Tide Pod Challenge video, don't bother. YouTube will take it down. What a weird, weird world we are living in. But there you have it. And in all honesty, they do look pretty tasty. But trust me, as someone who's worked with caustic chemicals, I actually worked in the back end of having to make laundry detergent. The chemicals that go into that stuff, it's literally poison. It is so acidic, it will burn your skin, and if you eat them, it will burn your insides. Do not eat Tide Pods, no matter how attractive they look. There you have it. Again, with this author and many, many other people around the country, we have to say, do we really have to say that? And I guess we do. So how about, we have time for maybe 2 more stories. All right, just a quick one. We had heard about this idea. I think we actually had the company on the program here with us talking about their drone technology. And, if you're watching the video portion, you can see it where 2 swimmers off the coast of Australia, they were about 2,300 feet or about 700 meters or 700 meters, less than a kilometer, which would be like half a mile, because I think a mile is like 5,280 feet. So less than half a mile offshore, they were spotted, and they were ages 15 and 17, and they were having difficulties getting back into shore. So instead of, calling the Coast Guard and having them picked up in a boat, which would take time that they potentially wouldn't have had, or for maybe the bodyguard or the lifeguard to potentially go out there and get himself hurt, instead they sent out a drone that they were actually training to use. And they said that he described the experience as unreal, quote unquote, and that the Little Ripper UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle, certainly proved itself today, and it is amazingly efficient piece of life-saving equipment and a delight to fly. So they said that this drone left from the beach, controlled by the lifeguard, hovered right over the people who were, they were attempting to rescue, and they were able to drop this inflatable life preserver that both of the people were able to grab a hold of, and then were able to swim themselves back into shore. And it was pretty darn cool. They said that Mr. Sheridan said it took a minute or 2 to launch the drone, fly it to the rescue site, and drop the pod. And any other day, reaching the teenagers could have easily taken 3 times as long. And the drone's camera also recorded the entire rescue, so you know exactly what was happening. So, let's see. So that is about it. And again, just another cool use of, drone use. All right. So there's that article. Time for just one more. Let's see if we can squeeze another one in. All right. I really, really liked this one. Microsoft. They're also working with artificial intelligence. Really, if you're a company and you aren't working with artificial intelligence, you're going to be finding yourself, woefully lacking. So they've said, and this just posted a couple of hours ago by TechCrunch, Ms. Sarah Perez, and saying that Microsoft today is unveiling a new artificial intelligence technology that's something of an artist, where the bot is capable of creating images from text descriptions of an object, but it also adds detail to those images that weren't included in the text, indicating that the AI has a little imagination of its own. That, if you go to Bing and search for a bird, you get a picture of a bird. But here, the pictures are created by the computer, pixel by pixel, from scratch. And that these birds may not exist in the real world, they are just an aspect of our computer's imagination of birds. And, the bot was able to generate a variety of images, including everything from ordinary pastoral scenes, like those grazing livestock, to the absurd, like a floating double-decker bus. And where Microsoft says that the bot was trained on datasets of paired images and captions, allowing it to understand how to match up words to the images. And it learned to draw a bird, for example, when the caption says bird, and it learned what a picture of a bird should look like, saying that that is a fundamental reason why we believe a machine can learn. And again, if you're watching the video portion, there's some examples here where they have this bird is red and white and has a very short beak. That's all the computer is given when it comes to, and after that, it has to draw a bird. And you can see here where the computer breaks down the sentence, identifies, parts of the bird to draw. So short, red, beak, very, A. So a very short beak, it draws a very short beak. It knows red, so the bird is primarily red. And then it starts to augment the drawing based on other adjectives, such as, white, bird, short, this, taking these words, and you can see it here where it starts with a very pixelated, rough idea of what a bird should look like. Then it refines it, it adds the beak, shortens the neck, adds some details to the feathers, and you are left with a picture of a bird that is, again, photorealistic, but completely made up by machine. Super, super interesting. Just to give you one more example, we have here, this is a picture, and this one's not photorealistic, but it's more, I don't want to say abstract, but you can definitely see what it was going for, where all it had was a fruit stand, a display with bananas and kiwis. And even though this computer, it never said anything else besides banana and kiwis, you can see here where it started to include things like pears and apples and plums, essentially a fruit stand, and it also included bananas and kiwis front and center. It just goes to show that, again, what he was getting at was that machines can learn. Machines are not strict to the letter. We've seen other research along these lines when you had a poker playing robot that was able to compete against humans with what they called imperfect data, because even though a poker playing robot knows its hand, it does not know the hand of the dealer or its other players, so it has to act as best as it can on things like intuition, which are new for robots, but artificial intelligence is getting there. So with that said, everyone, thank you for joining us here on Computer America. Again, our Linux show will be back here very, very shortly. We'll record that and we will get that underway. And let's see. So if you're tuning in tomorrow on the program, we will be having Box Lock. And they're a company that does, well, I assume some kind of lock mechanism. Oh, actually, I know these guys. They do the giant boxes that you can stick Amazon packages in so that you don't get robbed while they're just sitting there on your porch. So everyone, tune in tomorrow as we are doing this. And hey, folks, until next time, everyone, Computer America, thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.